Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome the CBE JU community, represented today by the governing board members, by the European Commission, by the Bio-Based Industry Consortium, by the members of our scientific committee and our state representative group, our beneficiaries, and of course our colleagues. It's really a pleasure to be here today celebrating the full launch of Circular Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking. And this is a long-awaited moment for me, as for you, to meet finally together in the same place, celebrating the success of BBI and the more ambitious objective for CBE JU. We have chosen this place as a symbolic venue. You don't know, maybe it is a former Shell building to really celebrate the movement from a fossil-based economy towards a bio-based economy. And so we know today the bio-based industries are employing and bringing bio-based solutions to support the green transition to low-carbon economy, to a circular society. The strategic economic sector that the bio-based community represents has not only positive impact on the environment in terms of sustainable development goals, but also on the economy, on the economic growth, on employment, jobs, and industry achievements. So our founding members today, the European Commission and the Bio-Based Consortium, will today explain their vision from BBI to CBE and their vision for the future and their expectation in terms of impact. Impact is a very important word, in my opinion, today, because that's the spirit of the joint undertaking. It's the idea to accompanying business, university, research centers, SMEs in bringing, scaling up, really, ideas from labs to the market. So we will hear also from our project beneficiaries about their vision and how BBI was able to bring it to the reality. We will be able to see, touch, and feel, and even taste, some of you already tasted, the final products that are the results of this joint effort. So experiencing firsthand the bioeconomy is really exciting, and it's fundamental to understand that the change is happening today, and we are part of the acceleration towards a more sustainable industrial ecosystem. As every industrial ecosystem, bio-based industries are facing challenges, of course, old and new, and we will face them with our partners, with the governing board, of course, in the first place, but also with our advisory bodies, with the new deployment groups in the future, and of course, with the strong collaboration between BEEK, the European Commission, that is present today with the GRTD, DG GROW, and DG AGRI, and also with the program office. As a last word, in this sense, I would like to thank the CBE staff and also Philippe, who is joining us today, for their dedication, professionalism, and team spirit. The success of BBI and CBE is your success. You earn the appreciation of the stakeholders, beneficiaries who count on the competence and support of really a high qualified team. The fundamental skills of these colleagues is to be able to work well together under pressure, enjoying and supporting each other and building a culture that is widely recognized by our friends. So this is what I wanted to say. Now I would like to give the floor to John Bell, the Director of Healthy Planet at the European Commission and Chairman of the CBE JU Governing Board. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everybody. And Philippe, it's great to see you again. Isn't it great to have something to celebrate in this world that we're in? We're surrounded by so many systemic challenges, uncertainties, shifting markets and prices, conflicts and so forth. And yet here what we're doing here is we're celebrating something which has taken tremendous consistency, commitment, effort, imagination and innovation to build. So we're celebrating the launch of our Circular Bio-Based Europe Partnership, established in November of last year legally. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at the next economy. We're looking at what all of this movement in the European Green Deal is supposed to look like in practice. When you see the projects that Virginia was showing us there a moment ago, you're actually seeing what the next economy will look like. And it's probably the one that most of our grown-up kids are pressuring us to imagine and to invest in. We know the context of what we're doing here is probably unique in human history. We're the first civilization that understands its dilemma. The first, where we're trying to reconcile the biosphere and the economy. That's the defining dilemma of our age, and it's fine to have words and ideas about that and policies and regulation. And for the European Union, the framing is the European Green Deal to create predictability. But when we look at what we're talking about today with the circular bio-based Europe, we're no longer talking about whether we can move to resolve these issues. We've started to show how we are going to do it. And I think this is critically important, and that in itself is something to celebrate. We've moved beyond speculation to deployment. So much depends on the sustainable supply of biomass. Technological and market uptake and the risks that are implicit in taking biomass and taking the potential that is there, that we needed to build a partnership together between those who understood where the opportunities are and those of us who have to stand in as the public authorities, the European Union, to de-risk the environment, to allow innovation to find its feet in partnership. And so none of what we're seeing here would be happening, I think, at this scale or speed in the European Union without this partnership. These things will happen. They will happen in other parts of the world. But the key point, I remember Philippe and I, when we were struggling at the beginning to get things moving, this is the key inspiration here. It's great to see transition, technology, sustainability, but we want it to happen here. We need to de-risk, demonstrate, deploy, and distribute these solutions through investment and de-risking. We've seen with the ongoing Russian aggression and the war on our fellow Europeans in the Ukraine that contexts are ever-changing. Crisis seems to be permanent. And resilience is something that we need to hardwire into every aspect of our economy, our society, and even our politics. President von der Leyen spoke about a war on our energy, a war on our economy, a war on our values, and a war on our future. And in politics, maybe these are very big words, where you're working and operating, where you have input prices and energy prices and competition for biomass and all the rest. This means that we have to create an environment where we can create sustainable bio-based investment in a resilient environment. So all the more reason why we have this great partnership and this commitment to the joint undertaking. We've seen also that the US is moving forward. You saw President Biden's recent move on biotechnology and the bioeconomy, and we're happy to see that. It just means that we have to step up on the competitive side on this side of the Atlantic, as we always do. We also see the movement within the CBE JU for small and medium-sized enterprises, remarkable achievements where they can find their place in developing and shaping the next framework. So we know that the European Union is producing about 4.7 million tons of bio-based chemicals every year, and that we're starting to have a strong bio-based share among chemicals of about 3% with projections of rapid growth. There are hurdles, but there's also huge opportunities in learning from the partnerships that we have in other product categories that could be applicable to key sectors such as textiles, construction, packaging, consumer goods. And as I go around and meet different people in different parts of the bio-based economy, you start to realize that there's something happening here. We're moving from niche to norm. That's the movement in the CBE process, and that's what we have to ensure. Carbon, of course, is the new gold, and the work that we're doing in which have one goal in terms of sustainability will have a very significant role to play in creating storage for carbon in different ways, which of course circular bio-based products and processes do in terms of their life cycle. Very importantly, the shift in terms of land use, which is probably going to be one of the most difficult discussions on the ground. Wherever you come from this summer, you've probably seen the difficulties with farming communities and so forth, in finding ways, new ways of thinking about carbon sequestration and the efficient use of land use and resources, and working out these boundary conditions on biodiversity and natural resource cycles. So these are all part of the world and part of the dilemma that we're trying to deal with. And you've seen there's been a sustainable carbon cycles policy document from the Commission last December, and many of its actions are relevant to the work that is central to our ambition, promoting carbon farming practices, linking up with things like the emissions on soil and so forth. Now, the policy relevance of all of this is quite evident to those of us who are in the middle of this big transition shift at the heart of the European Green Deal, whether you're talking about the biodiversity strategy, the land use strategy, decarbonisation strategies, circular economy plan, farm to fork communication. What you're doing and what we're doing is actually part of making that a sustainable business model, and that markets can evolve where it can be supported. There are great examples. If you haven't had a chance to look around, there's some extraordinary examples, and examples in the policy world are very important. You know what you're doing in terms of risk, you know what you're doing in terms of financing, you know what you're doing in terms of the dynamics of supply and demand and convincing your boards to invest and so forth in a very competitive world. In the area of policy, it's trying to explain to people, what does this mean? What does it look like? What chance is there of this actually being something? And I think what we see in some of the flagship projects here and some of the demos and some of the breakthroughs we've had are very important opportunities to narrate that this is happening and this can happen in Europe, and it needs to be supported right the way down the line. So if we look at farming, for example, is one of my favorite examples where I can explain to people what we're talking about. You can see this support from research and development through to sustainable, safe and premium feed products from innovative origins, mealworm insects, for feed and food end markets. These are things that people can understand. When they see shiny big factories and people talk about enzymes, most of the rest of the world out there is wondering what is going on inside the tin. So these are very important, and we need to communicate this. This will be a major message from me. Those of us who are part of this, the organizations you're part of, show and tell in the next period of time so you get the support that you need. I know the calls, which are brilliantly managed by the office, closed on the 22nd of September, are very successful. There's a high number of applications. I know that there's great coverage and good mobilization, and this is showing that in the real world out there, this is not a mysterious black box. This is a huge opportunity for people to make game-changing investments. One of the defining features of the CBE are the deployment groups, and this is both technically very important in terms of improving the resilience of supply and demand and connectedness, but politically it's very important to see that the model that is emerging is one that connects up biomass, technology, innovation, investment, industry, and the communities around which the profitability of the economic model can be deepened and developed. So it has a collective impact, and that's why the deployment groups in different areas on investment in primary agriculture and so forth and forestry will be very, very important. So we expect success, nothing less. It's easy to say. It's nice for the European Commission to be able to talk to our industrial partner and say, well, you know, this partnership of ours requires both of us to kind of stand out there and be brave. But I think the partnership is a very healthy one. It's one that's been through all kinds of trials, as a partnership should be, and I think there's great trust has evolved between ourselves within and across the Commission, where we've got different points of view on the way in which we're developing, and with the different partners through BIC and Dirk and the colleagues Matt and Rob and those who've taken this forward. There's a very, I think there's a trust-based relationship where people can be very honest from the different points of view, which makes us resilient. And I'd be glad to hear that the guy from the Commission is going to stop quite soon. Another 20 minutes to go. No, just kidding. We are coming out, as we all notice, of whatever COVID was in terms of the way in which we've been operating, into quite a decisive period in terms of policy, investment, risk and de-risking, as everybody is shifting to deal with all of the various risks that are there. So we're in a very important period between now and, say, the end of next year for people to see what has been achieved. For those of you who have leadership roles in the industry and in the communities of practice that develop these technologies, to step up and step forward and show what has been achieved here. One opportunity will be taking place at the 6th and 7th of October. We're going to have a major bioeconomy conference over 2 days, which will be about the bioeconomy as driver of the European Green Deal. And I would encourage you to come along to that physically or digitally and to get involved in that and to pick up the examples and to explain again and communicate the achievements that are here. So here we are, moving from niche to norm. It's very, very seldom that I get the opportunity to promote beer bottles at an event or do product placement. But again, it's another indication that the work that you're doing, it's entering into not simply business processes, entering into the households, it's entering into the lives of citizens. And I think we should celebrate today what has been complex, engaging, difficult, but worthwhile, and something which I think has an extraordinary potential to make the future a little bit more profitable, practicable, and better for all the people involved. And thanks to all the team for all your work. Thank you, Nicoló. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for opening, and thank you for your dedication to the bioeconomy in general, and specifically to BBI and to CBE in his lifetime. Now I would like to call our keynote speaker, Iris. Welcome, Iris. Many of you know her. She is the leader of the Bioladies network, and she has a long experience, please, in research, innovation, business related to the bioeconomy, agriculture, and other interesting areas. Iris.
Clicker for the...
You have it? I think it's there. Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Iris. I come from Malta, but my career was mainly in the UK. I worked in the Ministry of Agriculture and the Department of the Environment and the Department of Energy and Climate Change. And recently set up the Bioladies network. So we've been talking about the new circular, and I just wanted to show you that circular means so many different things to many different people. And depending whether you're in business or in academia, circular is really what you make of it. And a lot of people really think circular is about waste only. And we don't want them to think this. We want them to think that circular is about utilizing the biomass in its best way, the old mantra. So the selection of circular ways of dealing with biomass depends on where you stand. But my belief is that the bioeconomy is the true circular economy. Being that I was a civil servant for 40 years, definitions are really important, and I'm sure lots of you know what the bioeconomy is, but different countries look at the bioeconomy in different ways. The OECD looks at it from the economic point of view. The EU, of course, that's the official definition. The USA talks about infrastructure more, and they've just giving a lot of money to infrastructure as well as biotechnology and innovation. Japan actually talks about society as well. And in the old days, we used to talk about the three pillars: environment, social, and economic, yeah? In the old days, the three pillars were the main things. And the UK government looks at it more from the sciences point of view. So depending which country you are or where you're coming from, you have a diverse view, depending on how many resources you have in your country, whether your sciences are very strong. You have this big variety in how you look at it. So they told me to talk a bit about history. So I'm going to go back to 2008-09, when we used to work on the Lead Markets Initiative. I think Dirk was there in those days. And sadly, people like Peter Schintelmeister, who sadly died. But there were characters then, from 2008, that are still working on the bioeconomy and still pushing forward. The OECD, even in those days, had futures programs where I worked on that one as well, which showed the way forward, that biotechnology was one of the paths. And of course, the EU, obviously John Bell's been talking about how many. So we did the bioeconomy strategy, we updated it, then the Green Deal was more of an overarching, holistic view of everything. Nothing stands alone, especially in the bioeconomy. You can't just talk about one product. You have to have a holistic view. And I think very soon there's going to be, the Bioeconomy Progress Report is going to be issued by the Commission to tell us how much progress we've made. And I think we've made a huge amount of progress since the days of the lead markets, and of course then BBI JU and all those projects that I was an evaluator for. So just another bit of, looking at it holistically. I don't know if you know about biomimicry, but biomimicry is where we look at nature. Nature has had millions of years to get things properly done. And these are some of the principles of biomimicry. This is just one example of the bullet train, and somebody was looking and seeing how the kingfisher, and they designed the front of the train to be the same as the beak of the kingfisher. I'm going to look at 5 and 6. Nature rewards cooperation. Nature banks on diversity. I think for the bioeconomy to actually win out, these two things are really important. Diversity in all its forms and cooperation in all its forms. So here we come to the Bioladies network. It started off just for ladies, but it's now open to all genders, so anybody can join. And we have a variety of people from all over the world that are members. So I'm just going to take 4 examples to show where the bioeconomy has gone. So this is one of our wonderful members, Carmen. She's a designer, but she noticed when she was working in the Philippines about how bad the leather industry was for the environment and how poor the farmers were there. And she worked on a material which is made from the fiber of the waste pineapple leaf, and her textile is called Peanutex, and it's now being made into garments, it's being used for handbags, shoes, anything that you would use leather for. And she's been going out there talking to the fast fashion people, trying to get them to change into something that is more sustainable. And we've got people like Angela. So these are women that are my age, that have been at it for 20 years, right? Angela uses wool for packaging, and one of her most recent things is they realized from the World Health Organization that pharmaceuticals were being sent to places like Africa, and they were spoiled because the cold chain wasn't being kept. It was too expensive, the packaging, and it was too bulky. And they've developed packaging for vaccines that is small and using natural materials like wool and cardboard. So those are women that have been working for 20 years to reach a point where now they've got a company, they're employing people, the bioeconomy is working, they're selling their product. Then we've got younger bioladies like Florence, and she is amazing, building a pilot plant in Sweden, but coming out of Imperial, as a small startup. And she got money, of course, from Brussels. And these are the new types of projects that we need, the plants that are going to create more bulk, the products more in bulk. And another lady called Monica, based in Scotland, but the plant is going to be built in Poland. I'm apologizing for Brexit, I didn't agree with it, but a lot of the plants obviously are not in England. And there are lots of other examples, like Jennifer Attard, she's from Malta, but she's in Ireland promoting lots of things to do with the bioeconomy and getting lots of money from Brussels to do so. So now, for the more serious bit that I think John mentioned as well, This United in Science report has just been issued on the 13th of September, and all the meteorological people are telling us that we really are not doing very well. We've got to reduce our emissions 7 times, they're 7 times higher to be in line with the 1.5 degree centigrade goal of the Paris Agreement. This is really, needs us to sit up and see how badly things are. But then we've got things like the people reporting on the huge infrastructure companies, the big, huge companies that build airports and huge infrastructure projects. And what they're saying is that the bad news of the war in Ukraine, the Russian gas and oil, the energy crisis, it's going to really push the green sector. So there's some good news, there's the bad news, but the IPCC, in its recent 2022 report, if we look at these figures, I just want you to look a little bit at these figures. They are giving us the options, which sectors, and most of these sectors are bioeconomy sectors. We need to look at them and we need to see what we can do as individuals, as companies, as governments. So the central message is governments must rally to drastically cut emissions and stop the extraction of burning of fossil fuels in this decade. So the bioeconomy has a key role to play in this technological change, not just for the chemicals and energy sides, which are obviously huge, but also for materials and for regeneration of soils, landscapes, and biodiversity. And soil health, I think, is another crucial area we have to think about. So we're developing the green chemical industry, and I think some of the speakers after me are going to talk a bit about that. I'm not a scientist, I'm sure they'll be telling us. So the future that chemistry can give us, if we're using bio-based, if we have the biorefineries, we can develop in bulk, and we really need them. And the money that CBE JU and CBE JU will give to the PEFerence will really push this forward. So basically, the last bit, I think I've talked a lot, is we need renewable, not fossil fuel energy. We need regenerative, not chemical-based agriculture. We need public and not private transport. We need to raise taxation on goods and carbon and reduce it on incomes. We need legislation to be more agile, because as people are inventing things, we need to let these products be used by people. We need end of life, that this should account for emissions, and we need to incentivize industry to be more sustainable, of course. And we need education, as John said. We need people to understand the product that they're using. And of course, we need to continue inventing, researching, and applying new technologies. We're getting new solutions, but we need to do them quicker and bigger and faster. So I'm going to end with a quote from my friend Carmen, Biolady Carmen. Actually, I have a little bit of my own. That's what I think, but this is what Carmen thinks. Sustainability is not enough. Think beyond it. Expand your vision. Reach for regenerative thinking, regenerative systems, and regenerative products. If you create, do it with a humane agenda and in strong defense of the natural world. This is the new threshold, and we must cross it now. Thank you very much. And if you want to join the Bioladies, feel free.
Thank you, Iris. Thank you for sharing your vision. Definitely, it is also about values and people, what we are trying to achieve. Thanks a lot. So, speaking about business, now we change a bit our vision. You all know that BBI and CBE are funding first-of-a-kind biorefineries. We have today 3 very nice examples. The portfolio of BBI is very comprehensive. 250 million euro of funding have been invested on the side of the joint undertaking to support this project. And these projects are generating 1.3 billion euro of all investments. Direct and indirect job, 20,000 of them, so really a huge impact. And today we have 3 very nice examples of these projects. So I would like to first start welcoming Sarah Hickingbottom, who is the general manager of Circa, and she will tell us about the RESOLUTE project flagship and its socio-economic impacts. Thank you, Sarah. I will just...
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's go back one. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here with old friends, new friends. And I understand this is going to work. Is that okay? Can everybody hear me? Fantastic. So, RESOLUTE. What is it? Well, as we know, it's a flagship project. And Philippe, great to see you, summed it up in 7 short words, which you actually caught sight of just a second ago. RESOLUTE is the Green Deal in motion. It's 11 partners working together in a consortium to create synergy, to not only build a first-of-its-kind flagship plant, but also the ecosystem that's necessary around that plant to ensure that when it comes on stream, it will be successful. So you can see the consortium members up there. Each one of us is working on a different perspective, whether it's be the feedstocks, the plant build. Then we have REACH, the regulations, the life cycle analysis, quality control, all those different aspects, application development to ensure that there is market demand. So that's all very well. There's the plant. So it's actually where it's circled in white. And what you'll notice is that there's a lot of buildings on this site. It's a brownfield site. So it's an old coal power station in the northeast of France, in the Grandy region, which is a region with a long history of believing in the green vision. And so by repurposing, we can ensure that our carbon footprint is minimized and that we will create roughly 40 direct jobs, 120 indirect jobs, and truly support the local and regional and national governments of France in creating that green transition. It's a region that suffered as coal and wood sectors have declined. Okay. So that's great, we're building this plant, but what are we actually going to be manufacturing? Well, what you can see here is that we're taking Circa's proprietary IP and we're taking waste biomass and converting it into the platform chemical levoglucosanone. There aren't any other molecules, I promise. It's the one in the middle, LGO. It's a platform chemical that we've all known about for a very long time, but until now, there hasn't been a way of manufacturing it at scale. So as you can see, as a platform chemical, there's going to be a multitude of derivatives. And some of them are listed on those boards, some of them are low volume, high value. But the derivative that is large in volume is accessible in one further step. You simply add hydrogen, and it's the molecule that we've trademarked as styrene. Styrene has remarkable solvating properties. And what we found is that it can replace incumbents like NMP, DMF, and it's low toxicity, environmentally benign. And so in that million-ton marketplace, it's enormous potential as being safe and sustainable by design. But its properties, its USP, its value proposition sort of have a sweet spot. We can target areas where not only is it safe and sustainable by design, but it offers technical advantage. So for example, in dispersing carbons, graphene, graphite, it's up to 10 times better than NMP. And we can talk about it being readily biodegradable, low flammability, low corrosivity, all of these aspects that will support in its entire life cycle from the beginning, from the waste feedstock, agnostic, any cellulosic biomass, to its end of life. But absolutely critical is the carbon. We've been hearing today already, lowering carbon emissions is the crux of the Green Deal. And what a life cycle analysis carried out from Merck previously has shown that up to 80% carbon emissions can be reduced as compared to those incumbents. And we're working to even improve that. Other factors are connected to water. I mean, if we can improve the security of water by reducing its use and also enabling its water treatment. But what about the legacy? RESOLUTE as a project. Where next? Well, Circa's already working on the next plant. It's going to be 12,500 tons in size. And indeed, we're targeting, by 2030, a total capacity around the world of 80,000 metric tons. So what we can do is leverage the project, things like the REACH data, that regulation that's so necessary with a novel product, to enter new markets, such as the US, NAFTA, and also quality control, the market demand, the regulatory tailwinds, in order to achieve that goal. But you know what? I started out by saying that we were 11 partners working in synergy. That's part of the benefit of what a CBE flagship, a BBI flagship really brings, that the sum is better than the whole. But the other side of the argument is there's something else that it really brings to the table that is utterly fundamental and also intangible. And that is the nature of trust. John Bell mentioned the word trust. When you have a CBE flagship, or even a RIA, you have an innovation, you have an idea, you have a concept that when you go to a new customer, you go to a new partner, you go to a private investor. And what you're saying is that the European Commission and BIC, the Bio-Based Industries Consortium, has looked at this innovation. They've looked at this idea, at the engineering, at the technology, at the market demand, at the regulations, and they trust that this is commercial, that this has the impact that we need to transition to a future society. The other side is that it shows that the SME, the company that is scaling up, Circa in this case, has the capability to truly deliver on that promise of the innovation. And that trust is what Circa leveraged in 2021, went to the marketplace and had an IPO of raising over 50 million euros in order to build the plant, RESOLUTE. It also culminated in the French government and the local and regional support in also multi-million pound grants and a visit by the French Minister of State of Industry. And as Tony Duncan, who's sitting in the audience here, my CEO, says, business moves at the speed of trust. So I'd like to leave you with this idea. And that is that what the CBE really does is takes that innovation and turbocharges that speed. It makes the idea, the project, the commercialization operate at full throttle. And so together we can develop a circular bioeconomy and change chemistry for good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I welcome you to take a seat here for the next session. And I would like to welcome on stage Jim Laird, CEO of Enough, to tell us about the project PLENITUDE that I had the chance to visit a couple of weeks ago. Welcome, Jim.
Good afternoon, all, and thank you, Nicoló. So my name is Jim Laird. I'm the CEO of Enough, and we are a company who make sustainable protein. I'm also privileged to be here as the coordinator for Project Plenitude, and Plenitude is a flagship project under BBI, and on behalf of the consortium, I'm privileged to speak to you today. Plenitude was, I'm going to skip past this, Plenitude was awarded in 2018, which at the time means it was the 14th flagship. At that time, it was also the only flagship that addressed the need for sustainable food solutions. The aim of Plenitude is to create a first-of-its-kind zero-waste biorefinery solution to make food protein from renewable feedstocks. And I'm delighted to update that we're largely on track with that goal. This requirement for sustainable protein is one of the world's most urgent priorities. In each of recent years, we have witnessed the impact on climate with record temperatures, floodings, extreme weather events. In addition, we have seen the pressure on global supply chains and how fragility of the supply chains and on the environmental risks exposes food security. Now, Plenitude addresses this area by growing protein from starch crops in a manner which can support production close to the consumer, usually using locally grown food crops. And in doing so, we address several of the UN's SDGs, and Enough's goal is to produce 1 million tons of protein within the next 10 years. I think, as we know, as with any large-scale project in biotech, our journey with Enough and with Plenitude has not been super linear. We have the challenges and headwinds, and these include challenges in funding, challenges in technology and the market, and I guess more realistically, challenges in the community with COVID and pressures on inflation. Without the support, energy, and motivation from BBI and CBE, I have no doubt the project would not exist. CBE's support to flagships de-risks technology. It puts the EU right at the front globally in terms of pioneering new bio-based solutions. As Enough, or as 3F Bio, we date back to 2015, and we applied to BBI in 2018. I think we were more than delighted when Plenitude was confirmed at the end of that year, and the project kickoff took place in October 19, at a time which seems very long ago. Plenitude brings together a group of people and businesses who represent the full value chain and work as a team to achieve big results. And the kickoff event that took place only 6 months before that COVID event typically may have killed the project, but instead it led to a change in location. It meant strengthening of the consortium with the addition of Cargill within the consortium, and updated plans which resulted in us building our facility in Saasfjord, Kent, which is the creation of a facility shown just to our right here. And I cannot click. And this 14th flagship is co-locating on the Cargill facility, which is a facility which captures the bioeconomy. It processes 2,500 tons of grain on a daily basis and it has direct access to the sea. And in the ringed area, you see a large starch plant, and in red, which is a Cargill facility, and also at the top end in red, you see a bioethanol facility. And Enough, or Plenitude, took space in the middle. We are the yellow, you see us right in the heart. And we took space there to build a protein facility where we take the starch from Cargill as our feedstock, we process it in large-scale fermentation, and anything which is not fermented and in excess creates a zero-waste circular process by passing it on to the bioethanol facility. The image shown here shows the plant as it was 12 months ago. So I think you can see it was genuinely a greenfield site. And if you can indulge me, I will show you 3 short videos to capture the last 12 months and then summarize about how we impact on society and the environment. Exactly a year ago, the site we built on was that greenfield site. We held a ribbon-cutting event celebrating that groundbreaking on 16 September 2021. And in that meeting, the weather was kind to us. We had representation from CBE JU and wider representation from investors, local community, potential customers. And in what you're seeing, I hope this captures some of the energy that comes from flagships. We were delighted that Philippe completed the groundbreaking ceremony and spoke at the event. And this also shows some of the food that was core to what will follow. Food, and particularly animal farming, represent about 1/5 of global emissions. And if we're to address net zero, there is a need for a transition in the protein landscape that can only be enabled by projects such as Plenitude. The timing of the ribbon cutting aligned to securing the building permit. We'd already completed 2 years of pre-engineering design and had worked on all relevant permitting activities. And the symbolic groundbreaking led on to a range of ground preparation activities, including over 8 kilometres of piling over the period from September of last year to December, which then let us move on to construction phase. So looking at that construction phase, and I never know what's going to happen over my shoulder. In this second video, I capture activities in the last 9 months, which shows the gestation of a flagship food factory. What you can see here is from the spring of this year, with groundworks largely complete. It let us move on to the installation of tank farms and steel. And it's involved more than 100 suppliers, with more than 150 contractors on site on a daily basis. As we know, it's not been an easy year for construction or for many other sectors, but we maintained the project on track, and I think it's thanks to the benefits of maybe good weather, but most fundamentally to working with a very strong team, both internally and externally. And the main production building, which you see here, is now, it went up relatively quickly, and it's now moved into the process equipment. I'd highlight that all this has taken place in the last 6 months. So where we are now, a range of commissioning activities are taking place. Initially, the plant you see there will produce 1.5 tons of protein an hour, or an equivalent of a cow's worth of protein every 12 minutes. And going backwards. And in terms of the path moving forward, I was delighted that in the final video, this is the ribbon cutting event from 10 days ago, where Nicoló was kind to grace us with his presence as his first flagship. It celebrated the completion of the construction phase. As you can see, the main building's complete, and again, we were pleased to be joined by dignitaries, customers, suppliers, and Plenitude partners. We delighted, Nicoló, that you would speak, and also had speeches from Belgian Keuze, the sector director from Cargill, and also from Hugo Vakai, who is the CEO of the Vegetarian Butcher. And that presence of customers at every stage of our journey, and food at every stage of our journey, is what's essential, because we are making something which is about the bioeconomy, replacing something which has a more harsh impact. We see this as the first phase of capacity for production in Europe, and also see a strong need for growth. I think it's based on market estimates. There is a need for a facility of the size we've just built to be built somewhere in Europe every 5, or somewhere globally every 5 days. So we acknowledge our need to move faster and to keep going. And so my final piece, in terms of impact, we will make 1 million tons of protein. It's equivalent to 5 million fewer cows, or 1 billion less chickens, 6 million tons less carbon. This has only happened thanks to BBI and CBE. And so on behalf of Plenitude to you both, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Really very exciting to hear about the Plenitude project and see it taking life in so short time. So our third project is the PEFerence project, and Blom will tell us about the success of this project. Thank you, Bas. And thanks for the beer.
Thanks very much for having me. Good afternoon. My name is Blom. I'm the Managing Director for Avantium Renewable Polymers, and I'm also standing here on behalf of all of our partners in the PEFerence consortium. Let me see. So we believe in a fossil-free world. Let's go. We are a pioneer in the emerging industry of renewable chemistry. Our mission is to create disruptive technologies to accelerate transition from fossil-based to renewable and circular plastics. Our ambition is a fossil-free chemical industry by 2050. Our first to commercialize technology is a plastic called PEF. It's a natural winner that is going to take over the non-fossil-based world of packaging and textiles. It's 100% plant-based. It's circular, because without circularity, bio-based is not going to win. We need to reduce, reuse, and recycle, and work with our partners in the value chain to get that done and close the loop. It's degradable, better than fossil-based materials, and at the same time, we are advocating a change of behavior, because plastics don't belong in nature, no matter the time of degradation. Superior properties, and that's a key item here. We're not just bringing an offset to PET, we're bringing a polymer plant-based that has much better properties than PET. It has a much better barrier properties, 10 times better on oxygen, 6 times to 10 times better than CO2 from inside to outside, but also higher heat resistance, better stiffness, so you can design lighter products, so reduce. This is an important item to position this market successfully in the this product successfully in the market. Now, I don't have this fancy video that just was shown. I have a beautiful picture that I took last week at the end of laying down the floors of our factories, going very fast. We started in March of this year and celebrated a fantastic first piling event where Virginia was our guest and key speaker. And we're making fast progress, and I think I can feel you when you say, you know, this is a difficult time to build a factory. We are struggling, and we unfortunately had to announce as a listed company that we are going to be significantly going over the budget of building this factory, but we're adamant, together with our contractor Worley, to close gaps, find new funding with our stakeholders and shareholders to get this done. Timing-wise, we're still well in the zone of opening in January of 2024. Now we come to the beer part of this story you've all been waiting for. Carlsberg and Avantium have a fantastic development relationship. Carlsberg, one of our partners in the PEFerence consortium. We've been working together with Pabaco, a company that develops paper packaging over all of these years, and it eventually, over this timeline, it evolved into a fantastic and historical moment that we celebrated together with Carlsberg, of the introduction of what we call now the second generation. We've gone through a couple of developments of this beer packaging. The second generation of a beer bottle that is completely and 100% bio-based. So it's an outer shell of wood fiber and an inner shell of 100% plant-based PEF that provides the fantastic barrier properties to keep the beer on the right quality level. Not only that, we also signed an offtake agreement with Carlsberg on beer packaging across their product line, which is another important point also made by the previous speakers, that there's a lot of things that you need to get done in building a pilot or a flagship plant. It's getting it technically proven, commercially proven, sell the offtakes and sell the plant out. And the BBI JU has been a fantastic supporter of being the first one that put money on the table, and they're giving us the credibility to get a complete funding done, which in the end, for this particular project, flagship plant, is 190 million that we had to get funded. But we we got it done thanks to the first investor, which was CBE JU. So change is all around us, from solar, from wind, from our previous speakers that we heard from today, in creating the right plant-based chemistry. You see the food as well. Change is all around us, and these are really the three companies that you saw presenting here. We're the mavericks. We call ourselves the mavericks of this bio-based world, and people that are trying to help us clean the mess that we are creating here. We call them mavericks as well, and we need to work together with them to prevent this from continuing. So change is all around us, and I have to say that our friends from CBE JU are mavericks in themselves in helping us to grow and put these products in the hands of customers. So I'd like to end with an invitation to you. If you have not already tasted the beer of Carlsberg, I can highly recommend it. There is next to the fridges, there is a recycling bin, and I know you all want to take it home with you, but I would like to ask you to make a very nice picture with yourself of the bottle, because we would really like to have most of them back, because this is a test that we're doing, and the test also involves recycling tests, and we'd like to get them back, recycle them, and have another round of beer on us. So thank you very much for having us, and see you later.
Thank you, Bas, for your enthusiasm and the success of PEFerence. Definitely very exciting. Again, I take some keywords from here and there. We talked about values with Iris. We talked about partnership for both of you, but also de-risking, being a bit the mavericks, as Bas was saying. It is really a challenge, while it is extremely exciting. So, and I think we really get that as CBE JU, absolutely. So thanks a lot for this presentation. And now I would like to welcome on the podium, please, with me, the three following guests that will help us discussing the next part of the event. So we have Agatha Fox, who is the CBE JU chair of the State Representative Group. Hello, Agatha. We have Christine Schreiber, Director for Ecosystems in DG Grow. Hello, Christine. Welcome. Please. And Dirk Carré, as you prefer. And Dirk Carré, the Executive Director of the Bio-Based Industries Consortium. Thank you, Dirk. So we talked a lot about success, about the project that you led and you are leading today. So, but I heard in your presentation that there were challenges. There are still challenges. So I would like to start maybe with Sarah. Challenges and opportunities. So what is or has been the biggest challenge that your company, the project consortium, has been facing so far?
Thank you, Nicoló. Can you hear me? Fantastic. So a challenge to highlight is that what we find is that EU leaders, national, the European Commission itself, CBE, and national governments are very supportive, and so are a lot of end users and brands. But what we find is that increasingly there is some pushback, there is some delay, and in particular it's the big players, the majors, who are producing the incumbents, if you like, the chemicals, the solvents that dominate industry today. I mean, that's natural. When you envisage a new world, then the old world, in some degree, has to give way. And we're all sitting here facing the stark reality of climate change. It's here. It's not in the future. And so as a society, and everybody in this room, we're promised that we are going to make that transition. We are going to change. And so what we need is everybody to be on that train. And recently, the news of the PEF, that's the Performance Environmental Footprint framework that's being developed for the EU and can be used as a way of people who don't understand all the details, who don't know what the bioeconomy is and how do you benchmark that against something else. It's a way that they will be able to choose which is the most safe, sustainable, and best option. Well, they've come out with an approach that actually does not account for biogenic carbon. It treats the bioeconomy, carbon that's renewable, in the identical same way as the fossil. And quite frankly, that's not going to support any of us in this room. It will delay and kill some of our innovation and opportunities. So it's for all of us to ensure that the frameworks that are developed actually fully account for what we are bringing to the market, the innovation we have, and the full weight of the sustainability and safe by design of renewable carbon. That's the challenge.
It's definitely a big challenge. Thank you. Maybe, Jim, on the side of an SME, what have been the challenge so far to getting Plenitude up and running over this period? I hinted from your speech that there were some.
I think it's challenges or opportunities. I think within the last 12 months, the biggest challenge for us and globally for consumers is inflation. Inflation is impacting us all. And inflation, as you've just said, impacts our capital project. I guess it impacts our market as well. And bio-based manufacturing is fundamentally advantaged. So I think we are competing against animal protein, which is subsidized and where some of the negative externalities are not fully costed. But inflation works in two ways. So the inefficient farming of animals has seen 60% inflation this year. For our market, we have to make something that tastes as good or better and costs the same or less than the animal. And I think with the inflation that we're seeing in animal protein, it gives us more of an opportunity that we see ourselves pricing under the animal protein. So inflation hurts us, but it also, we find some opportunities.
Yes, thank you. And maybe going to Bas, same type of challenges that become opportunities.
Yeah, I think I can add to that as well. I think the whole market is hurting from inflation. Luckily, our fossil competitors are feeling the same pressure. The good news is that our energy efficiency is much better, and we're moving faster also to sustainable alternatives for our technology. So that way we can also be competitive from that side and turn that into more of an opportunity.
Thank you. And then we will pass to the ladies. Dirk, we will come back to you at the end. So maybe we can pass the microphone to Christine. So Christine, we heard a lot about project, about SMEs who are trying to scale up, and they face, of course, huge challenges. CBE JU and BBI previously was one of the programs that was really trying to push, and with a great success rate of SMEs in our program. From the European Commission side, especially from the industry policy side, do you see other instruments that could be useful for our companies to really go through these difficulties, these challenges, and that they face?
Yeah, thanks. No, I think, I mean, the CBE has really brought the demonstration that it's important to have public-private partnerships in an area which is in full, I think, development. But which still needs a push, especially I would say for the, hearing some music, but I hope it's not too loud, which still needs a push, in particular when we're talking about, scaling up. And I mean, as you said, incumbents is one thing, and I mean, usually, innovation also comes from incumbents occasionally, but I think usually the best innovation comes from SMEs, sometimes in cooperation with incumbents. I think, I think it's really, really important that we have this SME angle here. And I mean, you know the figures. We have basically overachieved our target, which I think is very rare. I'm also part in other, consortia programs where usually we underperform on the SME core. And I mean, you're talking here to a former director for SME policy. So for me, it's really something which is particularly crucial. I think what we must not forget, of course, is that we need to use the synergies also with, with other programs. And that's, I think it has been done well here, but for instance, at the European level, but also at national level. We have huge amounts of finance under the recovery facility. In some countries, there has been a lot of money spent on bioeconomy. In others, I would say much less. And so I think here there are lots of synergies which can be brought in. No?
Yes, thank you. This links perfectly with the concept of partnership, but also to our next guest, who is Agatha, and who might bring the perspective of the member states, since she's chairing our SRG, and how the local policy can bring in contribution and help the companies succeeding.
Yes, when speaking about the current crisis, it's hard not to start from already mentioned a few times the Russian unprovoked aggression on Ukraine, that it's absolutely unprecedented test for EU and its member states. And moreover, the war comes on top of several crises that EU was already battling. The EU countries are in fact still recovering from the crisis, economic crisis 2008-2011, and the COVID-19 pandemic continues to demand leader attention. It didn't end. It still requires our attention. And the urgency to address the planetary crisis, including climate emergency and environmental degradation, is growing day by day. The heat waves during the recent summer are the best evidence of what is happening. The latest 6th IPCC report published in April that Iris already mentioned leaves no doubt. The coming years will be decisive for climate protection. However, what I want to point out is that despite its challenges, the current difficult geopolitical situation presents also a new context for climate protection policy and goals, because the war did not cancel the green transformation. On the contrary, it gave it new dynamics related to the areas of security, independence, and resilience. So in fact, what is the answer to this current crisis and these current challenges is to redesign our economy to the criteria of sustainability. Sorry, it's very hard word to speak for Polish people. This is what we call a bio-based economy, in fact. So the economy that large proportions draws its resources from living nature. And the bio-based sector is a key to this green recovery, because thanks to the potential of innovation that lies in this sector, it can help the EU and its member states by turning the crisis into new opportunities for green recovery, green economic recovery, and green growth. So in fact, summarizing, I would like to say that Europe is home to many of the world's leading research institutes and universities, with some scientists who have already demonstrated what is possible, combined with the potential of bio-based industry and the funding that is available under the CBE JU initiative, far more exciting bio-based innovative solutions responding to the current crisis could be developed. So in fact, we can bring circularity into the mainstream and make Europe greener, safer, and more sustainable for all of us.
Thank you, Agatha. Dirk, now up to you to close up a bit. We heard about success stories, problems from challenges more than problems from the business side, the public side as well. How do you see what the future holds in your view? It's a big question, I know.
Yes, but I'm from big, so. So, well, first of all, I think if we look to the achievements that were obtained via BBI, I think this is quite exceptional. And I have to admit that some of these achievements, we were not expecting these when we started even the partnership in 2013. But what we really see is that in the previous partnership, we have really new innovations. We were not stimulating innovations, but we brought innovations to market. And this is very important. We have set up new value chains because the model that we were developing, bringing partners together, covering a value chain, also in the demo and the flagship, from feedstock supply to making new products, commercializing new. I think this is quite unique in the world, and this is why it was so successful. Due to this concept, to these value chains, we have seen collaborations started between companies, sectors that even were not collaborating before or that didn't know each other before. We have seen new sectors joining, sectors that were not very active in our area, and at least we have seen some very good examples. We have seen investments taking place in Europe. Some of these investments would not have taken place, at least not in Europe. So if you look to the future, what do we expect? Certainly the same, because I think we will not kill a baby which is growing up. The whole idea of bringing partners together in a value chain, especially demo and flagship, is crucial. So we are expecting new collaborations. We are expecting new sectors joining. We see already that especially sectors and users are joining because there's more and more interest of companies that bring products on the market to develop new applications. We have seen already some examples. I'm also expecting that we went already from, let's say, linear value chains to more complex value chains, where we try to valorize all the components of a feedstock. I think we will continue. We will valorize from your feedstock or a crop, the carbohydrates, the oils, the proteins. We will go towards more, what I say, bio-based ecosystems, where indeed all these components are valorized, but where also side streams, waste from one company becomes input for another process. And this can be in the same company, but this can also be, via collaborations, via different companies. And this is really something that we see already in current flagships. We expect collaboration and integration of new companies, new sectors. And we really see, that is also a big change, integration of food, feed, bio-based products. Again, sometimes within companies, sometimes in collaborations. There has been a time, the bioeconomy started as this nice model, but we have seen, we had the primary sector, the food sector, and the bio-based sector. And then we had a kind of activities for the bio-based sector, for the food sector, and for the farmers. But today we see that we have an integration again of these sectors, and we go again to really a bioeconomy, just like it was foreseen, I would say, 10 years ago. And I think the last element, what I see a big change, this is a growing interest of regions and member states. Because due to the geopolitical situation, all regions, all member states want to become more independent of imports of fossil fuel and gas. And I think there's a huge opportunity to valorize in the region the local feedstock, the local bio-waste, the local crops. That I think is one of the hopes I have. More support also from regions and also member states.
Thank you, Dirk. So if I can take some takeaways, definitely there is an integration among the sector, but an integration in terms of funding instruments, different levels, European, that could be lending, that could be granting as we do, but also at national level, because there are much more initiatives to turn challenges into opportunities. So thank you all very much. I would like to welcome back to your seat. Thank you. And I would like to invite Rob Beekers on stage to deliver us his concluding remarks. Rob is the Vice Chair of the CBE JU Governing Board, Chairman of the Bio-Based Industry Consortium, and Director of New Business Development at Cargill. Please.
So thank you. Thank you, Nicoló. I hope the phone works. So I was typing up some notes on what I heard. So John, you started by saying that it's strange to celebrate in the midst of the crisis, but actually we're here at the marriage. And maybe not at the marriage just between the European Commission and BIC, but we're here at the marriage between the biosphere and economy. I think very interesting. And And we need to tell the success of the marriage. We need to communicate. I think that's the message you left us with. Iris, then what I took from you, okay, biomimicry, very intriguing. I advise everybody to take some looks at it because it's really intriguing. And you left us with a point saying that nature rewards cooperation. And also that nature relies on diversity. And I think these are very true statements. Sarah, then, looking at you, repurposing a plant and creating a strong ecosystem around it. So not only starting something greenfield, but look at what you already have, but then build a strong ecosystem around it with trust amongst the partners. Really look at those kind of opportunities. And also what I witnessed there is that the role of hydrogen also in that biorefinery is key. So let's remark that. Jim, I think in your case the headwinds, where you say the headwinds didn't break the consortium, it would have broken your company. If you didn't have the consortium, it would have broken you. So I think it's relevant to have these consortium. Prior to that, it was interesting to see your colleague presenting and tasting, let's taste the food, and he said, well, we got some feedback from some customers that it tasted too much like chicken. Well, that looks like a success in itself. Bas, yeah, you brought forward that even if you have a natural winner like PEF, it is still difficult to realize it. So making a capital estimate, a projection, may turn out to be quite difficult in reality. And the funds needed to seek it through might be, and that's with many bioeconomy projects, I would say. Kirsten, the best innovation comes from SMEs. I'm also part of a large company, but I will fully agree with you. So best innovation comes from SMEs, so we need to connect them with large companies, connect them with countries, and also connect them with other collaboratives that might exist in regions. Agatha, your answer to the crisis is a redesign of the economy. So the answer to it's not a problem, maybe the solution to the crisis is a redesign of our economy. And also important what you said is that the coming years will be decisive. So it's not about 5 years from now, it's now. Dirk, I know your opinions very well. I think what you brought forward is that it's the uniqueness. So the uniqueness of the joint undertaking is that we have created unique value chains that may not yet be realized in other places in the world. And also that these value chains have triggered collaborations that otherwise would not have happened. So thank you all for those notes. Before going to the ceremony or the formal part, I'd like to leave you with something. I need a pointer. I don't know what
yes,
is here.
it's there.
Does this work?
Yeah.
Okay. So before going to the ceremonies, I'd like you to take you to Mount Everest. And actually, it took until 1953 until humankind was able to reach the top of Mount Everest. But afterwards, many people succeeded. And you could question, why was that? Was that because they were in better shape, because they found the right route, because the weather was good, or because they were having the right equipment? That's all true, but there was something else that made these attempts much more successful after 1953 than before. And what was that? That was the establishment of base camps. So without base camps, it turned out to be very difficult to climb the mountain. Actually, the base camps turned out to be the enablers for people to reach the summit. And if we look at our bioeconomy transition, also enablers are key for us. So we need to find our enablers to meet our summit. We need our own base camps. And actually, people may say, well, we already have those base camps. Yes, we have them, but I believe they're not yet well equipped enough. We need to equip them better, and we will be more successful in reaching the top. So let's look at the start, at the framework conditions of the European bioeconomy, or the framework conditions for renewables. These are pretty much in place or getting in place for energy. I think there's goals coming up, 45% renewable energy by 2030. This is not at all the case for materials. Let's face it. Companies are not really gearing up their efforts to move towards making more use of renewable materials. Clear example, there's 3 billion investment in a new ethane cracker in Antwerp. You could probably build 4 large biorefineries for that amount. It's not happening. We will need it, and we need to improve, I think, our framework conditions for renewables. Second base camp, the climate to innovate, and we talk about that here, and I think Circular Bio-Based Europe is a perfect example on how we're going to help innovations to new products, helping to achieve and get to market. It's very important to focus on innovations that are real, innovations that can make it to scale up. Unfortunately, and I'm part of an American-based company, there are more examples outside Europe than inside Europe that have reached industrial scale when we talk about it. We need to improve the investment, we need to improve the innovation climate, and I think there our focus will be in CBE on demo and flagships. It's so key to show what is possible in real, so therefore the focus on demonstration and flagship projects is going to be very important. Third base camps is about new value chains. Dirk, I can stop here because you talked about it. It is really about finding connections across industries and across Europe. And when you find them, connect and co-create. And I think here in the partnership, the Bioindustries Consortium will be of great help because we have a large network of industries and we can help to co-create. So I think that is really, really key. And then going to the top, the last piece might always be the most difficult one, the last steps, and that is finance, access to capital. If we look at the current crisis and the high prices for energy and for raw materials, we face that when we go and buy our products in the supermarkets or at home, or you get it delivered, we face that with the inflation. But can you imagine what it does for companies who are preparing large investment projects now? When I look at the portfolio I have in Cargill, the same portfolio today looks less attractive than a year ago. Exactly the same portfolio. And yet, we need to make investment decisions that happen now, because otherwise we will not be able to meet our sustainability goals after 2025. So initiatives like the European Bioinvestment Fund, European Economic Bioinvestment, also next week there will be a pitch event on scaling up in finance in Germany, where Beekers, I think, one of the organizers with, they're really great, and we need to foster those. We need those to make a transition happen. So I'd like to leave you with the thought that, yeah, I believe that there is no mountain too high to climb for humankind. And also the transition to a bioeconomy will require a lot of efforts, but the rewards will be huge. And so not only for the climate, but also if we look at the situation we are in today, the moment we would depend less on fossil and be less depending on all regions in the world, Europe would be in a much better position to avoid crises like we face today from happening. And the Circular Bio-Based Europe Joint Entity can really count on the Bioindustries Consortium, on all the companies. So we will be a reliable partner for the consortium. And I believe that together with the European Commission and the companies, we can make a transition happen. And that's where it's about. So with that, I'd like to give it back to Nicoló for we have something formal, I think.
Yes. Thank you, Rob. I think the analogy with the Mount Everest is very relevant, especially the different steps. I think we touched upon them today in several of our speakers' speeches.